I was born without a voice. Sounds weird, I know. Not a lot of people could say that. But when I was born, it was just a normal birth with my mom. She spent her labor as a normal mom. It was a normal birth, and then when time came around and she got into labor, we were in the hospital, and it went easier for her than it expected from her last child. And so she was pretty happy about it. And then we had the baby, and my mom had the baby. And I came out and I didn't start crying. I looked fine. I wasn't blue. I wasn't acting weird, but I was making facial expressions that I was crying, but no voice was coming out, which the doctors were like, okay, this is weird. So they went through and they put me in the the NICU, and they just continued to just try to figure out what's going on. Why wasn't I making any sounds? So I was in the hospital for maybe 2 weeks at that point, and then they finally figured out that my vocal cords were actually fused together. And your vocal cords being fused together is it's not life-threatening, but as a baby, you want to be able to make some noise so you can tell your parent that you're hungry, you need attention, something like that. And babies make a lot of noise, so that was definitely a scary point with me not being able to talk. But a couple weeks later, we were able to get into surgery where they went in and they cut my vocal cords in half, which then gave me a voice. So I was able to talk and do lots of other things. During that time where I couldn't say anything, my mom has told me before that I was born I was the perfect child because I made no sounds. I didn't cause stress among them like most babies do with their parents. And it wasn't very stressful for them. And then that all changed as soon as I got the surgery. And then life after that, I was a normal baby. Normal things happened. And then we get into third grade. Third grade, I start going back to the doctors because I'm asthmatic, so I was having worse asthma in third grade. So I was around, I think that's 8 or 9, somewhere around there. But as my asthma was getting worse, I kept going to the doctors just to see what they were doing. And once a month, they had me do a process. I forget the name of it, but it's when they have a long camera, maybe this long, and it's really small, but they would insert it through the nose to the back and then down the throat into the vocal cords, just to make sure they were okay. And I had to do this maybe once a month, driving all the way up to Salt Lake City, which is about an hour and 15 from where I lived at the time. And this was a monthly thing until we could get the surgery placed to do it again. This experience for me was very odd. The feeling of something going through your nose and down your throat is not something everyone should feel. I definitely do not want to do it again. I have the memories of that feeling stuck in the back of my head, but we had to do what we had to do. We had the surgery planned out. It was in February of my third grade year, so it was just right after my birthday. And I remember the day like perfectly. We and my mother drove to, I think it was the Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City. And we got there, checked in, and we had a little bit until the surgery came around. So there's a little game room with a little Xbox 360 that I was playing on. My mom was just sitting on the couch, and I was just playing this Xbox 360 with some random kids, probably playing Minecraft, which is one of my vivid memories. And one of the nurses walks out and asks for my name. I stand up, and my mom walks with me till she can't anymore. And I was young. It was a sad moment. I was like, I don't want my mom to leave. So I started crying. But the doctor's like, it's okay, you'll be fine. And I get to, then we walking down this hallway, and my mom just stopped behind this line, and I just kept looking back at her, and seeing that, like, she was back there, I couldn't really talk to her or reach her or anything like that. And then we would go into the hospital room, the surgical room, and this room is so boring. It's white everywhere, which now that I'm older, I see that reason why and how it keeps everything clean. You can see things better. But at that point, I was like, this is scary. This is scary for me. And at that point, they had me lay down on a metal table that was freezing cold. And I'm in my little scrub thing, so I wasn't wearing much clothes. And when I was laying down, the anesthesiologist was talking to me, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna put this mask on you, and I want you to fight it as hard as you can. I want you to see how long you can last. The longest person someone's lasted is 30 seconds. And I'm like, oh, I could beat that easy. That's 30 seconds is easy. And he starts having me count. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I don't even make it to 10. I probably ended on 8 or 9. But at that point, the surgery was happening, and then I wake up in the post-op room, where I have an IV in my arm. I'm laying down. I feel as sick as a dog. I can't talk at this point. I was able to talk before the surgery. I can't talk now without it hurting. And my mom was sitting there, and we were just there. The nurse came in, was like seeing how I was doing, asked if I want any liquids because I wasn't allowed to eat solids. And of course, I got Jello. Jello was my favorite thing in that hospital room. I had so much Jello, it was insane. And then a couple hours later, my family showed up, like my grandparents. My dad got off work and came up and saw us. And my grandma got me this little plush frog. It's probably like this big. I still have that thing. And then my other grandma got me a blanket and like a dinosaur book. I loved both of those. I love the frog more because I don't know. I just really like that frog. But after that surgery, I ended up having to stay the night because the surgery ended late, and they just wanted to make sure I was okay. So I ended up staying the night, and around 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up, and I felt amazing. Like I felt like I could go run a marathon. So we called the nurse in. The nurse was like, oh, okay, we could probably take your IV out now. They take the IV out, and 15 minutes later, I'm throwing up everywhere. I was sick as a dog, and the nurse comes in. It's like, okay, that's here. We'll just put the IV back in. So they go to my other arm, and they can't find the vein. They go in once, they go in twice, they can't find it. And as a little kid, this hurts a lot. And then you move over to the next arm, and then she finally finds it. And at this point, I end up just falling back to sleep. I start feeling better. I fall back to sleep. And in the morning, we wake up, and the doctor's like, okay, we're going to try taking out the IV again. You let us know if you feel any, sickness again. So they take it out, and I ended up being fine. I felt great. Well, as great as you can feel after surgery. I still could not talk, I was still only on liquid foods. So we go home. I'm bedridden for a couple days, but I'm still able to go to school the next Monday. So I go to school And I have a friend that actually helped me a ton. Her name is Briley. I wasn't able to talk for probably 2 weeks. I had 2 surgeries. I'll get to the second one in a minute. But I wasn't able to talk from my first surgery to the second surgery without it hurting. But during the surgery, they put in a plastic piece right here so they can go in and take the stitches out later at the second surgery. And so if me talking would have messed up the stitches and the plastic piece that was in my throat. And my friend Briley, she sat next to me, and I wasn't able to talk, so I would write down things on a whiteboard and show it to her, and she would tell the teacher what I was trying to say. And I really am very appreciative of her at that time. We're still kind of friends. I actually dated her for a second, but and then 2 weeks passed as me not talking and just writing my stuff on a whiteboard. As a kid, this was really hard because of the way kids just want to talk a lot. So for me, it was a hard thing not to talk, but I ended up doing it, and we had surgery again 2 weeks later, and same thing. Me and my mom went down there, and we get in the situation again where I'm playing Xbox, waiting for the nurses to come get me, and we walk back to the room. I don't remember this part of the story much, but I know the surgery happened, and then I wake up in the post-op room. And in that post-op room, I feel amazing. I don't feel as sick as I did last surgery, and I wake up. At this time, the surgery was a lot quicker, so they went through, and I probably left the hospital around 1 or 2 p.m. And at this point, they said I can finally eat solid foods. So when we got out of the hospital, they rolled me out on a a wheelchair, and mom brought up the car. It was a really fun experience after the surgery, and obviously got more Jello because Jello. But after that went down, me and my mom were like, "Okay, where do you want to eat?" And I'm like, "I would want nothing more than a sandwich from Arby's right now." My mom's like, "Arby's? Like, why would you want Arby's? Like, you never like Arby's." I'm like, "I don't know. I just want Arby's." So we ended up going to Arby's. We sat down, and I still have my surgery thing on. I still have scars over my throat. I'm still you could tell I was straight from the hospital. And I got a sandwich. It was their classic with cheese. I remember that, and a Coke. And after that meal, we ended up driving home, and I was able to talk, but I wasn't able to talk loudly at that point just because of the vocal cords were still sore. It was more of a whisper. And I get home, I go to school, and I'm still having to write some stuff on the whiteboard because I can't speak to the front of the class where my teacher is. And with that, it made it a little difficult for 2 to 3 weeks after, but as it was starting to heal, I was able to talk louder and louder and louder. And a couple years later, I'm now graduated from high school, starting college in a week, and I have my voice. I've had my voice since 3rd grade. And my voice, I say, because before the surgeries, my voice was very high-pitched. I sounded annoying how high my pitch was. And then after the surgery, my voice got deeper. Still not deep as it is now, since after junior high, my voice has been deeper since. But that's my story of how I wasn't born with a voice.